I am highly excited to welcome you to Mathematics Simplified. My name is Joseph Jacob. In this video, we are going to focus on a new series, Simultaneous Equation. What is simultaneous equation? What are the methods of solving simultaneous equation? Well, let's start by understanding the meaning of the word simultaneous. Simultaneous means things, two or more things that are done at the same time. Let's use two pictures to explain what simultaneous means. In this picture, you'll see a musician. While she's singing, she's also playing the guitar. She's doing both things at the same time. So we can rightly say that she's singing and playing the guitar simultaneously. Let's look at another picture. In this picture, you'll see a beautiful lady answering call. As she's taking the call, she's also taking notes. She's doing these two things simultaneously. From these two illustrations, you'll understand that when things are done simultaneously, they are done at the same time. Before now, we've been solving simple equations. You'll understand that most times these simple equations are just, for instance, 3x equal to 9. You'll understand that we are only interested in finding what x is. Even when the simple equations seem complicated, like when we have something like 5t minus 3 equal to 45 plus 10t. Despite the long equation, we are only looking for the letter t. What is t? So it's very simple when we are doing simple equation because we are looking for just one unknown. Now, in simultaneous equation, just as the name implies, we are not going to look at one equation, but we are going to look at two different equations. And these two different equations will not be solved individually. They will not be solved separately. Rather, they will be solved together. That is where the name simultaneous comes from. So when we look at simultaneous equation, the implication is that we have two unknowns instead of one unknown as the problems we'll be solving in our previous videos. Now, look at this example. When we have something like x plus y equal to 7, x minus y equal to 3. These are two equations. We are not going to solve them one after the other. If we solve them like that, if it is possible, it will no longer be simultaneous equation. Rather, we will solve both of them together because we are doing two things. We are solving two equations together. That is where the name simultaneous equation comes from. Now, if you look at these two equations, you'll also realize that we have two unknowns. We have two letters, x and y. What does that tell you? It means that in solving simultaneous equation, you will get what x is. You will also get what y is. So it means that we are going to get two answers in every simultaneous equation we solve. Both answers must be correct for you to have gotten the equation correctly. So, what are the methods of solving simultaneous equation? There are basically two ways or two methods of solving simultaneous equation. The first method is the elimination method, while the second method is the substitution method. Now, what is the elimination method, or how does the elimination method work? Elimination. When you hear that word, what comes to your mind? To kill, to erase, to remove completely, to annihilate. There are so many synonyms that might come to your mind when you hear the word elimination. Now, when we are using the elimination method in simultaneous equation, we are going to kill, we are going to completely remove one of the unknowns. Then we'll find the other unknown we've left behind. Like the example we gave earlier, x and y are two unknowns. So it's either you eliminate x. When you eliminate x, you look for y. When you've gotten y, you take the value of y to replace y in the equation, leaving x as the only unknown, then you can get x. Alternatively, you can choose to eliminate the y. When y is eliminated, you now get the value of x. Use the value of x to replace x in the equation, then the only unknown will be y. You now get your y. Very interesting, isn't it? That is about the elimination method. Now, let's talk about the substitution method. If a dozen is 12, and someone says, I gave you half dozen, and that person can say, I gave you 6. 6 and half dozen are the same thing. Now, that's exactly what we do in substitution method. In a sentence where you have half dozen, you might choose to remove the half dozen and replace it with 6. You have substituted the half dozen with 6. So in the substitution method, we do something very similar. Now, if we take the y, for example, we can make y the subject of the formula. In the simplest form, making y the subject of the formula means we have y at the left-hand side of the equation. We now have our equality sign, and all other figures or numbers will now be at the right-hand side. Y alone at the left-hand side. When you achieve this, you've made y the subject of the formula. Now, what will happen is, what you have in the right-hand side is the same as the value of y. Now, you take what you have at the right-hand side completely, use it to replace y in the equation. What it will mean is that there will be no more y in that equation, you have only x. And then you solve for x. When you've gotten the value of x, you now use that value to replace x in the equation, and you now find your y. That is the substitution method. You may not completely understand these theoretical expressions I'm using to explain the two methods of solving simultaneous equation. But I can assure you that when we go to the whiteboard and start solving simultaneous equations, you'll be able to understand everything, every problem we'll solve. Well, this is where the cookies crumble on today's video. Our next video will focus on solving simultaneous equation problems with the elimination method. Please, make sure you don't miss it. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.